Hi humans, it's Hannah with my November reading wrap up. I unfortunately didn't read too much this month, but it's okay, it's not the end of the world. However, I do have quite a few thoughts about the books that I did read. I don't think I had the best reading month, not just in quantity, but also in kind of quality. I mean, it's average. It's not too bad, it's just okay. So I'm going to go with the newest book that I read, or the latest book that I finished, and it is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, and I really wanted to read this for a very long time. I thought the concept was really interesting, and this basically follows a woman who works at a convenience store, and she just is content doing that, and people just keep bugging her about it, and people keep questioning why she won't, I suppose, aspire to more, or why she isn't ambitious, or how she's just content being there. And they're always trying to push her to conform to more normal societal standards and expectations, like getting married, having children, being in a relationship at the very least, whatever it is. They're just kind of, or even just to get out of this job and try to find another job. And so many blurbs on here by really cool people, and I don't know, Sally Rooney says totally unpredictable on the back, and I think, yeah, and on the front it says exhilaratingly weird and funny, also by Sally Rooney. Irresistibly quirky by The Guardian. Vogue calls it as intoxicating as a sake mojito. Is that how you say it? The alcohol? Sake? Right? Something like that. I don't know. I don't drink, so I have no frame of reference, but I did hear the word. I just can't remember it because I don't use it enough. Anyway, point is, I had such high expectations because everyone seems to love this book, and in concept, in theory, I'm all for it. And I loved the way, so my friend Dana read it, and I will insert her Instagram here if you'd like to check it out. She does bookish content as well, and she had a really interesting take on why she enjoyed it, and I enjoyed her take a lot more than I enjoyed the book. Like, I loved her perspective on it, how she describes that the convenience store dynamic and this whole job that this woman has is this larger symbol to just any societal conformity, or it's disruptive to any kind of social conformity, and it's this idea that this thing represents a larger problem and a larger, what's the word, I forgot the word, but a larger occurrence, a larger issue at hand, and I enjoyed that. And yes, it does, but that's the thing, it's the idea that I love and the concept, but the execution I just don't enjoy. I didn't enjoy the writing style. I didn't really enjoy the dialogue, the conversations, the actual plot, like I don't know, the character herself was fine. I don't know, like, this was just a fine book, like, it was okay. Which I think is why it was so disappointing, because I thought I would really enjoy this, and I do enjoy contemporary books. There are a lot of contemporary books that I enjoy. This was just not one of them, and the thing is, I see a streak in my Japanese literature taste. I just don't seem to engage with most Japanese literature I read. So far, actually, with any Japanese literature I read, I just find it very dry, and so I'm wondering if there is something about the translation. They're always different translators, but I just wonder if maybe the language doesn't translate well to English, or maybe it's just like a cultural thing in the conversation, in the actual writing, or I'm just picking up the wrong books. I don't know, like the wrong books for me, for my taste. Whatever it is, the thing is, I'm so stubborn, and I really want to find Japanese literature that I enjoy, so I don't know. This was also translated by Ginny Tapley Takemori, so credits to the translator, or I suppose, I don't know. I don't know if I just gave him credit, but you know what I mean. Acknowledgement for the translator. But I don't know, man, it's just just a dry book. I feel like the concept could have been, like, this could have been maybe an interesting short essay, and just the writing stuff, something doesn't, no. I just gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, which is sad, but at least it's a pretty book that could be on my bookshelves, and maybe someday I can kind of I don't want to say change my reading taste, but you know what I mean. Like I might transform a little bit in my opinions of the book, but I can see why some kinda. I mean, can I see why people like it? Kinda, sorta. Anyway, moving on to the next book. I listened to this on audiobook, and it's I'm glad my mom died by Jeanette McCurdy, and this is a memoir that has been breaking the internet, and it's of, is it Nickelodeon? I think Nickelodeon star Jeanette McCurdy, child star, and I have seen a few episodes of iCarly when I was younger, but it's not something that I, you know, grew up on. It's not something that I was really attached to, so I haven't had much attachment to the actress, and I typically don't tend to attach very much to celebrities anyway. So that may have affected my reading experience ever so slightly, but I did enjoy this, and I will preface this by saying that I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I did end up enjoying it, but in the beginning, I didn't very much. Like I was kind of struggling to keep reading or listening. It just felt, the writing style also just wasn't for me. You'll notice a theme, by the way, in this in this wrap up. A lot of the writing style just was not for me, and I didn't think I was that picky of a writing style person, but turns out I really am. Like I thought I was a little picky, turns out I'm a lot picky. But I then found out that because this story follows her, it's an autobiography, and it follows her, I suppose, journey becoming a star as a child, and her mother who influenced that and affected that, and she's the one who kind of, you know, pushed her into that whole industry, and the abuse that her mother has dealt her, whether it was in terms of promoting eating disorders or actual, I don't know how to describe it because I don't know what the correct category is. I don't know if it fits in a clean box. I don't know if it counts as sexual or just kind of boundary breaking abuse. I don't know how to describe it, but it was, there were a lot of disturbing things. But in the beginning, I didn't love the writing style, and I didn't love the delivery of the story, but then I later found that it's because we do go by her age chronologically, and when she's younger, the tone is just very, this is what it was, and just very, you know, factual. The chapters were really short, and while that might have been a plus to a lot of people, to me, I found that they were like so, like, too short that it was a little annoying. It might be because my phone has a thing where with some, I don't know, like with some audiobooks, it doesn't skip to the next chapter and I have to like refresh it or whatever, so that may have been why it annoyed me. But there's just something about the beginning, so that's one thing, like the short chapters was, like, they were too short, but also the beginning just felt too dry. But again, later on, the writing does become a bit more interesting, the delivery becomes more interesting, and it's not the most mind-blowing writing style, but there is a kind of connection or a kind of more deeper explanation of her emotions and a deeper exploration, even not just explanation, but exploration of how certain things have affected her that I thought were really interesting later on. Whereas when she was younger, the writing, I suppose, was just accommodating that age or matching her simpler, you know, just being simpler as a child. And I think the writing just kind of elevated and evolved with her aging throughout the story. It was definitely a very uncomfortable read, but also just, I suppose, I understand when people are like, oh, this is really raw. It is very raw. It's very honest, and it's not pretty. And I appreciate the vulnerability. I think it takes a lot. I know it takes a lot to produce things like this, to tell your story, and whatever the intention or whatever the purpose is, whether it's to give yourself relief or to provide a kind of relief, connection, community, or, you know, just like provide a frame of reference to other people who might be going through the same thing and help them feel like they're not alone, whatever the purpose was, whether it was this or the other, for her or for other people or for both. I know that it takes a lot to tell the truth in this capacity and about subjects this sensitive. So I really appreciated that, and I think It's an interesting book, and I ended up enjoying it is a weird word, but I ended up appreciating it a lot. And then we have The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. This is another autobiography, and this is also another one. I think this month, you know, a few of the books were not the nicest of concepts or the nicest of themes. They were a little, not nice, they're a little sad, a little eh. And this is one of that. It's one of them, and because this is a memoir following the year after Joan Didion's husband passed away very suddenly of a heart attack or of a heart problem, and I was a little misled by the title because it says The Year of Magical Thinking, and so it led me to assume that there will be some magic involved, there will be some magical thinking, some positivity, some being uplifted, and it's more, it's not you, it's me. That's kind of where it was, because this was just pure misery. Pure misery, just so sad. And I ended up stopping halfway like a while back, a few months ago, and then I only finished this book because I then picked up the audiobook for the next half because I couldn't keep going. Again, the writing wasn't, the thing is, to me, I have to have either really interesting writing or really interesting context, both. But for this, the writing it wasn't bad writing, obviously. It was just not really my taste. It was just very, this is what it is. And the subject matter was just really bringing me down. So there wasn't much pushing me. Like when people say that this is heartbreaking and beautiful, heartbreaking, yes, but I personally didn't think it's beautiful. I just thought it was just heartache in a book. And I was just so sad. I was just so sad the whole time when she talks about her, these parts were admittedly beautiful, when she talks about her relationship with her husband and how they had this friendship and companionship, and the fact that they were both authors and they would help each other with I suppose with ideas and brainstorming and sharing ideas and talking about their dreams and their projects. I love that. I love that they would go swimming every day after like they worked for a bit, and then they'd go back into their office and they'd work together, and there was just something very beautiful about that, I will admit, and that I think is what kind of made it so sad and made it so heartbreaking, but also why I was drawn to this. I was drawn to this relationship between a creative and another creative, and their bond, and then the kind of ramifications of when that bond has to eventually unfortunately break. And it was just it was really sad in that sense, but at the same time I was expecting, I think I was just expecting something different. Again, it's a me thing. I just had a bit of a different expectation of this book. I didn't dislike it by any means. I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. And I liked it. I just, you know, I wasn't too attached to it. So I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. I do want to read more by Joan Didion. I think I might want to pick up Play It As It Lays, which is her fiction work. I'm not sure how many works of fiction she has, but I don't know, I'd like to hear her voice or read her voice in fiction, and maybe in a different subject matter that is not quite as, you know, blade to the heart, because it was just really upsetting. But yeah, there was also like a really weird personal issue with the book, with some representation, but I don't know, I'm just not gonna share that because it's like, I don't know, I just wish that it was just a misunderstanding on my part. Just something that made me feel a little weird, but whatever, I'm just gonna let it go. And then the last book that I read, which was technically the first book that I read this month, was Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett, and this is a fantasy trilogy, so this is book 1 in the trilogy, and I have been wanting to read this for years. I'm not exaggerating, years, because Reagan from Peru's project has been mentioning it for a while, or has mentioned it ages ago, and continued to every now and then, and it sounded so cool. We follow this girl, I don't know, who, I would say this is adult, I wouldn't call this YA. So we follow this person who can listen to objects or understand their coding, because this world can kind of code objects and they can magically inscript instructions onto an object and have an object believe that it's something that it's not, or do something that it's not really supposed to do. And she can listen to this code, she can communicate with the object, and it can tell her where it's weakest, where it's strongest, and give her information by who walked on it. If it's the hardwood floor, she can listen to the floor and figure out who walked recently and how many people are in a room. And all of these things come really handy because she's a thief, and this special power of hers makes her a really good thief. And she's tasked with stealing an object that she does not know is actually a really big deal. And that little act of hers just kind of tugs on the strings of this whole bigger plot. It was kind of like a domino effect, like she just pushed the first domino and then just everything went to shit. Everything spiraled, everything just blew out of proportion, and now everyone's chasing her, everyone wants her dead or is trying to steal the object from her, and she gets tangled up in this big political game that is kind of, it's like a really high stakes, the world might end because of this, or life as we know it might end because of this. And so she has to team up with a group of unlikely characters to sort this out, and I can't really give you much more than that. It's pretty vague, but just the idea of the magic system and her powers, I think, was what sold me on wanting to read this, and I was just really excited for it. Again, my problem with this was the writing style. I hated the writing style. For like the first 50 pages, I kind of hated the book, not gonna lie to you, because the writing style, I just, dear God, the dialogue, despised it. I was just like, people don't talk like this. I hated it. But the more I read on, the more natural, sorta, it became. It's not a perfect read for me. It's not a perfect writing style at the very least. But then once you kind of get past that, once I got past that, the plot was just so good, was too good to put this book down and to worry about the writing style. I was just like, you know what, I don't care. They can talk however the hell they want. There's also, this is how you know I'm annoying. It's not just the writing style as in the use of words, but also the structure. So the way that, I don't know, the author italicizes certain words and certain thoughts, but then also said in the end. And I was just like, but we already know that this writing style, when it's italicized between two, not brackets, what are these called? When they're like, you know, when they're sharp, whatever they are, like greater than, less than, that symbol. Yeah, so when they're italicized between these two symbols, we know that they're thoughts being shared between two people. Like, it's, why do we need to add they said or what? Like, I don't know. Something, that's how you know I'm annoying. Like, stuff like that, structural stuff like that bugged me. But with that said, I don't know, like it was still a really interesting fantasy world, and just the world and the magic system were really interesting, and then the political dynamics become they become clearer in the end, and then the history of this world and how we came to this point is really interesting as well. And so I ended up really enjoying this. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it, and I can't wait to pick up book 2. I'm hoping to get my hands on it really soon, and book 3 recently came out, so I'm excited to just kind of fly through the next 2 books. And it ended on not a cliffhanger, but quite an open ending where it's just like, wow, things are gonna get really bad, aren't they? So I'm really excited to get to this. But those are literally all the books I read this month. I told you, they were not many. It wasn't the biggest reading month for me. I can't even tell you why. I'm not even sure why. But if you have read any of these books, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of them. And let me know if you have any recommendations based on the thoughts that I gave. Especially if you have any Japanese literature recs that I might enjoy. I'd really appreciate that. Because I'm desperate. I need to find Japanese literature that I enjoy because I see so much potential and I don't know what's happening. But other than that, if you guys enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like or subscribe because that really helps me out a lot. If you want more content, you can click either video on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one.